Hey guys, welcome back. I'm ThatSamoanGuy, and as I'm sure you've noticed, it is almost the new year and it's time for, once again, the best movies of the year. I'm actually really excited because there's plenty to choose from this year. The last couple of years it's been way easier to come up with the top 10 worst than it has been top 10 best. And because there is so many to choose from this year, I want to take a second real quick before we get into the top 10 and just mention a few honorable mentions, so to speak. Still technically in my list, but these are the ones that I didn't want to not mention in a list about best movies of the year. It felt wrong leaving these out. I didn't want the list to be too long. Quick disclaimer before we talk about any of these movies is that this is a video talking about the best movies that I saw in 2014. There were a lot of movies coming out this year. I didn't get a chance to see everything. I'm really bummed I didn't get to see Big Eyes, the new Tim Burton movie. But if I don't mention a particular movie in this list, chances are I just didn't get a chance to see it. Or maybe I didn't like it as much as you, or maybe it's in the top 10 worst, maybe you're just in the wrong list. Hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, I'm not completely discrediting the possibility that the Grumpy Cat movie was the best movie of the year. I just didn't get a chance to I read the title card wrong. I am discrediting the possibility that the Grumpy Cat movie is the best movie of the year. With that said, let's go ahead and let's talk about the honorable mentions, quote unquote, and then we'll just flow right into the top 10. Despite having one of the most forgettably bland titles of the year, Edge of Tomorrow turned out to be way better than it really had any right to be. The dark humor was a good touch, Tom Cruise did a good job, Emily Blunt did a better job, and I'm sure that the manga it's based on is better than the movie, but for all intents and purposes, on its own two legs, Edge of Tomorrow was really entertaining. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes continues the trend of the series, wherein the ratio of the stupid title is directly proportionate to how good the movie is. Its only real flaws seem to come from a good place, that is that the apes are so interesting that the human characters kind of fall flat by comparison. The Taking of Deborah Logan, available on Netflix now, was one of the smallest releases that surprised me the most. It's a documentary looking at the effects that Alzheimer's has on the titular character Deborah Logan. At least it starts out that way. As the movie progresses, it begins to look less and less like Alzheimer's and more like something far more nefarious is happening to her. The movie surprised me with how much it does with so little. The production value is next to nil, and it banks almost everything on the performances. And it's a smart bet since everyone, with the exception of the young college character, turns in a really powerful performance, especially the woman that plays Deborah Logan. If I was building this list based solely on just the power of performances, this movie would have been in the number 2 or number 3 spot. I actually really enjoyed Godzilla. It was a great return to form, and while I agree the most interesting character took a backseat to Aaron Taylor Johnson's rather bland character, I don't agree that the movie fails just because it teases you with the monster and makes you wait for the action. If you want immediate satisfaction with your monster movies, that's what Pacific Rim and Michael Bay movies are for. Monster movies are primarily about military and scientist-type characters plotting and planning how to take down the monster, and the climax of the movie is supposed to be the monster action. This one fares no different. I don't know what people were expecting. I know what to expect, so I liked it. Finally, Into the Woods is somewhat of a late entry, but it deserves recognition for the daunting task of adapting one of the darker musicals out there into a Disney PG movie. As a point of comparison, that's like trying to make Sweeney Todd acceptable for a Lifetime original movie. The performances across the board are powerful, the characters are energetic and lively, except for maybe Red Riding Hood, and you'll be humming the tunes long after the movie is over. I would still reconsider taking the kids to this one though. Even though it is dialed down from its original stage version, shit's still pretty messed up. And now the official top 10, starting off with Snowpiercer. Simple, original action with the backdrop of a new take on a post-apocalyptic world helps to give Snowpiercer a fresh take on the lower class overthrowing the higher class synopsis, and a very admirable approach to world building. Number 9 is Noah. A lot of Bible-themed movies came out this year, and a lot of them sucked. So why does Noah stand out as being the best one? Well, I think a lot of that has to do with Darren Aronofsky's direction. Anyone else in the director's chair would have had the movie coming out a lot less serious and gritty. But another big part of it is how he approaches the character of Noah himself. Instead of sticking with the one-note stereotype that we're all familiar with, he takes the character of Noah and fleshes it out into a three-dimensional, fully realized character. But of course, a big reason why this one stands out against the other Bible movies that came out this year is that it approaches the Bible as text, not as fact. It's more interested in telling a story than it is standing on a soapbox and preaching. And that simple change in priorities helps to make Noah stand out as a much stronger film. Number 8, The Grand Budapest Hotel. Right up there with The Fantastic Mr. Fox as being the more accessible of the Wes Anderson movies. It's exactly what you would expect from one of his movies, but much more reserved, more dialed down. It's still the same fantastical, whimsical type adventure that you would expect. And as it turns out, the fact that almost the entire movie is told in flashback is almost no obstacle at all in getting connected to the characters involved.
She's been murdered, and you think I did it.
The number 7 spot is shared by Gone Girl and Nightcrawler. I honestly couldn't decide which one was going to be in the top 10 or where they should be, which one was better than the other, and a big reason for that is because the movies are so freaking similar. They're both down and dirty suspense thrillers. They're both about complete sociopaths. It really just kind of depends on what you prefer your movies to end on. If you don't mind feeling like you have to take a shower afterwards, Nightcrawler might be more your cup of tea, but if you want one where the bad people get their comeuppance, so to speak, Gone Girl might be more your speed. Either way is an exhausting trip though, as they're both incredibly tense and will have you gripping your armchairs with tension. Number 6, Guardians of the Galaxy. Everything was working against this movie. There's no reason why this should have worked as well as it did. I half expected to walk out by the end of the movie and just shrug with, well, the actors did the best they could, but they didn't have much to work with. Who would have thought that not only would the movie have come together, but it would have excelled at convincing us to like these characters. For crying out loud, Dave Bautista is one of the main characters, and he's not the worst actor in the movie. I don't really know that it's really James Gunn's direction that makes the movie work so much it is just the writing in general and the chemistry between the characters. Whatever it may be, I'm happy it's there. Number 5, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Yeah, Guardians was great, but I would have liked to have been a little weirder and to have a more intimidating villain. I like Captain America 2 for those reasons as well as on its own merit. A superhero spy movie with something to say on current government mentalities and to handle it with maturity and care is what The Purge wishes it could pull off. Number 4, John Wick. John Wick is a great example of how you can take the same basic premise, give it to a different director, and have it be a completely different movie.
I'm up.
Easy.
I lost everything. That dog was a final gift from my dying wife.
It's John Wick.
What looks like the same basic revenge story you've seen a million times before in the trailers turns out to have a whole world underneath it. In fact, world building is one of the best things this movie does. It does a fantastic job of giving you a real sense of this whole other world of assassins that works underneath it without being too fakey comic book like Smokin' Aces was. And holy shit, I think we all forgot that Keanu Reeves can act when he really wants to. Why he chooses not to a lot of the time, I'm not really sure. Though I understand where people might come from when they say they don't like his acting style, I personally really enjoy it, but I enjoy it even more when he has a character that he can really sink his teeth into. John Wick is one of the most well-crafted, simple, subdued, and awesomely fucking violent revenge movies I've seen in years. It's a good middle ground between the Transporter movies and something like Drive. It still manages to find its slow pace in the good moments and take its time, but when the action does kick in, buckle up. Number 3.
You can't get rid of the Babadook.
Yeah, that's right, a Kickstarter movie is going on my top 10 list. But honestly, when I sat down to watch it, I didn't know it was Kickstarted. You wouldn't have guessed it just from looking at it. It looks better than a lot of the independent movies we get in theaters. Not only does it look great, every aspect of the movie individually is fantastic. And when you take all the elements and put them together, no joke, no exaggeration, it's one of the best horror movies I've seen in the last decade. The framing, the playing with shadows, the darkness, all the dark shots almost have this kind of weird, surreal, dreamlike quality to it. And only someone with real love, care, and appreciation for subtlety could pull that kind of thing off, being with it such a technical aspect of the movie. Not only is it shit your pants scary though, it actually manages to have a real deep, heartfelt story to it. Again, something lost on modern horror films. It can be talked about, it can be deciphered so many different ways, it can be dissected. There's so many things represented and looked at but not thrown in your face, so many things that draw parallels to each other. The Babadook manages to be one of the silliest titles of the year, but also one of the best movies in general. Unfortunately, it's rather difficult to come across now. It plays in very, very select theaters, but I do know for a fact that it's available on PSN and video on demand. If you can stomach a good horror movie, you can't do much better this year than The Babadook. Just be warned, this movie was quoted by the director of The Exorcist as being terrifying. It really is that scary. Number 2, The Raid 2. Good action films excel at keeping you in suspense through gritty, choreographed action scenes. Conversely, a good drama film does the same thing without its characters doing much more than talking. The Raid 2 is a perfect marriage of both, the result being a suspense ride that never really lets up. Much like Godzilla, those expecting non-stop action like the first one will have to be a little bit more patient, but trust me when I say that the patience pays off. And finally, the number 1 spot goes to, and say it with me now,
everything is awesome. Everything is cool when we're part of the team. Everything is awesome when we're living our dream.
I've never believed in the notion that just because a movie is targeted at a younger audience is an excuse to be lazy. There's a place for lowbrow slapstick kids movies, but kids also need to be challenged to some degree as well. They need to see that there's more than one way to approach and view things, but presenting that in the proper manner takes talent, effort, and care. Hence why a lot of kids' films are what they are. The Lego Movie is a prime example of a great children's film. It's bursting with ideas, it knows how to handle and present them well, packed with emotional content, and it's even funny as hell. Many of us scoffed at the concept of a Lego Movie when it was first made public. Now we're all eating our own words, myself included. This movie's awesome.
Drink overpriced coffee.
There you go. That's $37.
Awesome.
Alright, there you have it. My best favorite movies of the year list. You are now free to relocate down to the comments section and blow me up as much as you want. I would take it as kindness if you didn't. I would much rather hear about what your favorite movies of the year were. Especially since, again, I missed out on so many. I'd like to hear what Big Eyes and Stalingrad and a couple of the others that I missed this year were. So by all means, yeah, let me know, and then I'll see you guys here tomorrow for the other list.